Welcome to this explainer. Today we're doing something honestly pretty fascinating. We're taking a super dense 100-question playbook, the exact kind used to interview and train professional safety officers, and we're decoding the whole thing. We're going to transform those highly technical Q&As into a really clear, cohesive framework. Basically, we're popping the hood to look at the actual operating system of occupational safety to see exactly how a safety officer thinks every single day to protect lives.
So, think about this for a second. What is the single difference between a harmless near miss and a fatal workplace disaster? Kind of a terrifying thought, right? Oftentimes, that difference is literally just an inch of space or maybe a fraction of a second. A safety officer's entire job, like their whole professional existence, is dedicated to managing that exact gap. It's all about making absolutely sure that pure luck isn't the only thing standing between a worker and a total catastrophe.
Here's our roadmap for today. We're going to start by learning the language of safety. Then we'll move right into proactive hazard control, cover emergency response, and finally look at how to build a self-sustaining safety culture.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1, the language of safety. To really understand how a safe workplace operates, we first got to master the highly specific vocabulary that safety pros use to classify the world around them.
So there's this fundamental distinction in the safety world that, honestly, most of us get wrong. In everyday conversation, we use the words hazard and risk interchangeably, like they mean the exact same thing. But to a safety officer, totally different. A hazard is simply the source of potential harm. It's the thing itself. Think of a toxic chemical, a deafening noise, or a massive suspended load. Risk, on the other hand, is the actual mathematical calculation of the likelihood that the harm will occur, combined with just how severe that harm would be. In short, the hazard is the danger itself, while the risk is the chance it actually gets you.
Building on that idea, let's look at the difference between an incident and an accident. Again, we mix these up all the time in daily life, but for a pro, the difference is literally the damage done. An incident is an event that could have caused injury or damage, but didn't. An accident is an event that actually results in injury, illness, or property damage. Basically, an incident is a warning sign, while an accident is the painful consequence.
Which brings us to a really crucial concept, the near miss, and this ties right back to the question we opened with. A near miss is an unplanned event that didn't result in injury or damage, but absolutely had the potential to do so. Imagine a heavy wrench falling off some scaffolding and hitting the concrete literally an inch away from a worker's foot. That's a near miss. It is the ultimate free warning sign. Safety officers absolutely obsess over near misses because investigating them is how you prevent the actual tragic accidents of tomorrow.
Moving right along to Section 2, proactive hazard control. Now that we have the labels down, how do we actively defend against these workplace dangers before they ever strike?
Well, the main engine of a safe workplace relies on the 5 steps of risk management. It's this highly systematic, cyclical process. Step 1, you identify the hazards. Step 2, you assess the risks, calculating that likelihood and severity we talked about. Step 3, you determine how to control those risks. Step 4, you actually implement those controls out on the floor. And finally, step 5, you review their effectiveness to make sure what you did actually worked. It's just this continuous loop of observation and improvement.
So how exactly does a safety officer decide to control those risks? They rely on a framework called the hierarchy of controls. It's structured like an inverted triangle. Up at the very top, the absolute best, most preferred method is elimination, just completely removing the hazard altogether. If you can't pull that off, you move down the list to substitution, then engineering controls, then administrative controls, and way down at the very bottom, that's PPE, or personal protective equipment, like your hard hats and safety goggles. Now, why is PPE at the bottom? Because it's the absolute last line of defense. If a hazard has actually reached the PPE, it means every single other control measure has completely failed.
Let's look at one of those really critical control procedures in action, LOTO, which stands for Lockout Tagout. This is a strict, non-negotiable rule in heavy industry. It's a procedure to ensure machines are properly shut off and physically locked, so they absolutely cannot be started up again while someone is doing maintenance. By slapping a physical padlock on a power switch, you completely remove the risk of someone accidentally turning the machine on while a coworker has their hands deep inside the gears. It literally removes fatal human error from the equation entirely. Now, for the most dangerous tasks out there, you're going to need a permit to work, or PTW. Think of the PTW system as the ultimate gatekeeper. It's this formal, written authorization used exclusively to control high-risk activities. We're talking about hot work that throws off sparks,
highly complex electrical jobs, or entering confined spaces. You can't just walk up and start doing these jobs. No way. A safety officer has to review the plan, verify the controls, issue the permit, and constantly monitor the conditions.
Just to show you how rigorous this gets, take a look at the required steps for confined space entry, like, say, climbing into a massive storage tank or a grain silo. You definitely don't just pop a hatch and climb in. First, you have to obtain that permit to work. Second, you do extensive gas testing to check oxygen levels and scan for flammable or toxic gases like hydrogen sulfide. Third, you set up proper ventilation. Fourth, you only go in with a dedicated standby person watching you from the outside. And fifth, you absolutely must have a rescue plan fully in place before a single boot ever crosses that threshold. Talk about layers upon layers of proactive control. Another big part of proactive control is visual communication. A workplace has to communicate crucial, instant information without anyone saying a single word, and it does this through universal color-coded signs. A red circle with a slash? That means prohibition. Do not do this. A yellow triangle? That's warning or caution. A blue circle means mandatory. You must do this, like wearing your air protection. A green square indicates an emergency safe condition, like pointing out an exit route. And a red square always points to fire safety equipment. It's a whole visual vocabulary built for split-second recognition.
But what happens when, despite all the permits and locks and signs, something slips through? Well, that takes us to Section 3, Emergency and Incident Response. A truly great safety officer has to excel at two entirely different mindsets. Everything we just covered was proactive safety, focusing intensely on preventing incidents before they ever happen. But now we have to shift gears into reactive safety, dealing with incidents after they've actually occurred. You always hope for the best with your proactive measures, but you have to be impeccably prepared for the worst with your reactive protocols.
Take fire emergencies, for instance. You can't just grab a bucket of water and throw it on any fire. Safety pros actually categorize fires scientifically because knowing exactly what is burning is literally the only way to safely put it out. Class A fires involve your ordinary combustibles like wood and paper. Class B are flammable liquids, so oil and petrol. Class C are flammable gases. Class D involve combustible metals. And Class K are cooking oils and fats. If you were to use a standard water extinguisher on a Class B oil fire or a Class C electrical gas fire, it wouldn't just fail to put it out, it could be instantly lethal.
And when the unthinkable does happen, and there is an accident, a safety officer immediately pivots into detective mode. The steps for an accident investigation are super strictly defined. First, you secure the area and collect all the facts. Second, you interview the witnesses. Third, you identify the root causes. Fourth, you recommend corrective actions. And fifth, you follow up to make absolutely sure those actions were actually taken. The biggest takeaway here, an incident investigation is never ever about assigning blame to a worker. It is 100% about finding that root cause so you can engineer a solution to ensure it never happens again. Okay, let's transition into our final section, Section 4, Building a Safety Culture. Because here is the ultimate truth. All those rules, permits, and hierarchies of control, they are completely useless without the human element.
Cultivating a true safety culture provides these massive, sweeping organizational benefits. I mean, obviously, it reduces accidents. But look at the ripple effects here. It vastly improves employee morale, it actually increases productivity by reducing downtime, it ensures legal compliance, and it builds a really positive company image. Safety isn't just some boring cost center or a trick to avoid regulatory fines. It is a fundamental driver of a successful, efficient, and happy business where workers actually feel valued.
So how do you actually build that culture on a daily basis? You do it through things like toolbox talks and safety inductions. These are short, highly focused meetings held right there on the shop floor before the work even begins. They're used to communicate specific hazard info, discuss control measures, and promote safe behaviors for whatever specific task is happening that day. Think of them as the heartbeat of a safety culture, making sure that awareness stays razor-sharp right on the front lines through constant, open communication.
And keeping that awareness sharp is incredibly vital. Because when you look at the most common causes of workplace accidents, they usually aren't these dramatic Hollywood-style chemical explosions. Nope, they're usually everyday behavioral slips, unsafe acts by individuals. Poor housekeeping, like leaving cables cluttered around or floors wet, which leads to catastrophic slips, trips, and falls. It's a lack of proper training, failure to follow established procedures, or honestly, just rushing to get a job done faster.
A strong safety culture aims directly at fixing these exact human behaviors. Which brings us to this really powerful foundational mantra that pops up repeatedly in our source material. Safety is not just a rule, it's a way of life. Think safe, work safe, go home safe. I love that because it perfectly captures the whole mindset. True workplace safety isn't about ticking off boxes on a clipboard. It's a moral imperative. The goal is to return every single worker to their family at the end of their shift in the exact same condition they arrived in.
To wrap up, I want to leave you with a quick thought to help you apply this operating system to your own life. Look around your own workspace right now, whether you're in an office, out in the garage, or sitting in your living room. What is one hazard you've been casually ignoring? Is it a tangled power cord? A blocked exit? Now, using that hierarchy of controls we just learned about, what proactive control are you going to implement today? Stay safe out there, and thanks so much for exploring this vital topic with me.